For anyone who doesn't know, Ethan is actually not going to be in attendance this episode. He actually recently moved. And because of that, he has actually run into some Wi-Fi issues. And as a result of that, today will be another two-man episode, but this time it's me and Brandon rather than me and Ethan. So,
Yay.
First of all, that also means that I am the most consistent stacked host because I have been on the most episodes technically. However, yeah, that's just the nature of it. And Brandon and I talked, and we were like, "What do you want? What do you want to talk about today?" But we thought we'd just shoot the shit and just see what happens. We're just gonna chat and talk, catch you guys up about whatever we've been up to, or any thoughts we've been having about anything at all film related. We're just gonna see, where the night takes us. So
This could
come
be a
along with us.
disaster. This could be a disaster.
Oh no, this could very well be like one of the worst episodes, or it could be really great. Because at the same time, I also feel like our podcast tends to work its best when we're being kind of spontaneous. So we'll see.
Yeah. I agree with that. No, I was like, I didn't want to interrupt you.
You're good.
But like genuinely, I agree. And it's just been a while.
Yeah.
There's been a lot going on in the news lately.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter.
Yeah. What do you want to get us started? Just chat about anything anything interesting that you've been seeing on the internet or whatever. In the meantime, folks, what I'm going to be doing as Brandon gets started is I don't know if any of you heard last episode, but I was coughing up a storm last episode. And that's because, guys, after 3 years, I fucking got it. I had COVID. Finally did it. I do technically still have COVID. I'm about to do a COVID test, which is what I was telling you guys about just a second ago. I am on my 6th day right now, so we'll see if this thing is still kicking in my body. But yeah, I'm about to do a COVID test, and so we'll see. But Brandon, why don't you get us started? Let's talk about something.
Yeah, lately I've just been super busy at work personally.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's my biggest life update is I'm going for lead at Knott's, which I know was mentioned on your and Ethan's solo episode 2 weeks ago. But which I did listen to. I did listen to the whole thing, even the out of sync portion. It was lovely. But yeah, I'm going for that there. So I've been involved in lessons that I have to take every day. So for Monday through Friday, the past 2 weeks, I've been pretty much in classes, dealing with those. And I find out officially tomorrow if I got the position.
Oh, good.
And then this weekend I took trainer courses, which means we had to go out in the field and like train other associates, not like for real, but like as a simulation before we do our like teach backs for the position, which is really interesting to be involved in that kind of corporate atmosphere. And but also like it's sort of different because like you're operating with a lot of social interaction, which isn't really that common between a lot of corporate jobs and environments. But I had a great time. Here's hoping I get it. Yeah. I know I passed the test.
Okay.
But did I pass the interview? We'll see.
We'll find out. Yeah, dude. I mean, like, you've been slowly working your way up through the ranks of Knott's, and like now you're going for team lead, which is like the only comparable thing I can think of is when Justin was a team lead when he worked at Target.
Yeah.
So, like, okay, one thing I've always wondered is, like, Brandon, like, you are known for having a lot of these, like, very specific niche interests and hobbies or tendencies, what have you. And one of them, obviously, is roller coasters. And I'm wondering, has there been much, like, intertext between your interest in film and your interest in roller coasters? Because, like, I don't imagine there's very many movies centered around it. But then again, like, I would love to see like The Founder, but like for roller coasters instead of McDonald's. I don't know.
That would be cool, But I feel like roller coaster engineers, like, they kind of like range from being the most boring people alive, which is super ironic because they create attractions
some of the most
that
like
aren't
exhilarating things in that humans have ever created.
Yeah, and then there are like guys who are like you wouldn't expect them to be engineers. Not saying they're like dangerous or like a danger to anybody by building these things. It's just like I wouldn't expect that to be the personality of somebody who did not design something like this.
Mhm.
You know, they obviously have public faces of companies that do that, but like
Right.
that like you would assume would be that, but they're not. And there aren't many roller coaster movies. You know, there's Final Destination 3, which sparks, I think, a lot of people's fears of roller coasters, even though if you're an enthusiast, you'll look at that movie and you'll be like, that is not accurate at all.
Mhm.
But like, you know, who is really paying attention to that stuff other than like somebody like me? But like what piqued my interest actually in coasters was actually when I was like 11 or 12, and Chris knows that I wasn't really an enthusiast until like around 2018 or 2019.
Yeah.
Like before COVID,
Right
but
before
like
COVID. Yeah.
yeah, but I was like planning trips and stuff, and then it didn't happen because of COVID. And since I've done it, but you know, regardless of that, what piqued my interest was actually like, and I don't know if you had this, it was a cable channel in the US. I don't know if it was international, but it was the Travel Channel.
Hmm.
You probably had it.
I probably had something along the lines of it, but I'm not sure.
Well, they used to have these like weekly episodes of this show called Extreme.
Hmm.
And it would like, they would take you to, and it would be extreme and then like a type of place. So there was extreme hotels, extreme water parks, extreme roller coasters, extreme theme parks, stuff like that.
Okay.
Extreme malls. And that really sparked my interest in like the global aspect of not only just traveling, but of coasters and theme parks in general.
Right.
It just was when I went to the theme parks between the ages of 12 and like 16.
Mm.
I was afraid to go on anything, even though I saw stuff that really interested me.
Right.
And that's kind of the intersection between, I think, television entertainment and roller coasters that really got me invested.
Totally. No, yeah, that makes sense to me. I feel like with coasters, like my experience with coasters has been kind of similar to yours in the sense that like it was always like something that I would, whenever I was at theme parks, I'd always walk by them and look at them and be like, oh my God, that's crazy. I like my sister was a big roller coaster junkie. She loves like and she'll go on stuff that aren't coasters, but like I would consider far more extreme, like all the stuff with the winding and turning and all that nonsense. And like yeah, so I've always been kind of scared of that stuff because I guess I'm just scared of that stuff. But over the last few months, like having gone to Knott's with you guys and having gone on our trip to Pennsylvania, I really feel like I've come a long way in conquering this fear that I've had for like literally my entire life. And yeah, like I've grown an appreciation for coasters in the sense of like I don't necessarily think I'm as invested in it as much as you are. You know, I'm not as big of a aficionado when it comes to like the terminology of what's going on with the roller coasters and like the manufacturers and whatnot. But at the same time, I'm like, I can get the appeal of why this is interesting especially in the sense of like the way it's designed and how it impacts the experience as a rider. And like for example, if you turn this way, it's going to create this kind of effect, yada, yada, yada. And like, you know, it depends on the scenery, depends on the theming, depends on this, that, you know, and yeah. And so I get the your interest in roller coasters.
Well, I appreciate that. But also, I want to say this. I remember on our Pennsylvania trip, it was like the third coaster we rode, or fourth coaster, and we were going up the lift hill, and it was a vertical lift hill. And you didn't know, even though we were in line for like an hour, that it was a beyond vertical drop, that it was more than vertical, more than straight down.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you said to me?
Was it about me about to shit my pants? I don't know.
Yeah. You were like, wait, Brandon, it's like 97-degree drop coming up, and you're like in the seat in front of me. I have a picture, but front left to yeah. And I was like, yeah, 97 degrees, can't wait. And you were like, 97 degrees. Wait, that means it's like beyond vertical? And then I was like, yep. And you went, I'm going to kill you, Brandon. And then you really enjoyed yourself. Well,
no, I did, yeah.
It looks...
I feel like I've told this story before on the podcast. Have I told you a story about like that trip? On that ride, I had like a 10% thought that like I might actually shit my pants.
No.
But all right, let me I'll make the story real quick. So we get in line, and we're in line, and obviously I've got some nerves. You know, I'm a little nervous to go get on this thing. Another thing about me though is that when I travel, I have a weird thing where I get constipated for the first like 2 days of the trip. So while we were in line, I was just standing there trying to be calm, relax. Like, okay, like you've already done like 2 or 3 coasters prior to this. You're fine. Like you're gonna be fine. So just be chill. And then I get to and then as we're working our way through the line, I'm like, oh, my stomach is hurting. Like, and this is like this is hurting. Like, and I'm thinking like, okay, do I hop out and quickly like go use the bathroom and come back? But I'm like, I was worried that like if I hop out, then what if the line picks up and then you guys get on and then I'm gonna look like a bitch for not getting on. So I was like, okay, you know what? Just bear with it. Somehow I managed to bear with it, even though there are multiple times where I'm like, I'm about to shit my pants. Anyway, we get on the ride. I'm sitting next to Justin. I remember very specifically sitting next to Justin and just kind of I'm like, all right, strap me in. Let's fucking go. Let's go.
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting there and like, I remember it's one of those launch starts, right? Like the hydraulic launch. Is that what it is?
Oh, it's not the one I was talking about, but yes, that one is a hydraulic one. It's like accelerator at Knox,
yes.
Which you had already been on at this point.
Yes. So I'm there and I'm like, okay, like, be cool. Just be cool. After this, you're going to go to the bathroom. It's all going to be cool. And then I remember like looking over at Justin and he's like, what? And I just looked at him and I'm like, Justin, I'm not kidding. There's like a 15% chance I'm going to shit myself in a second. And then Justin being the ride or die kind of guy he is, he's just like, hey, it is what it is. And then he's like, enjoy the ride. We go, boom. My eyes are closed the entire time. But I will say, after those first maybe 2 seconds of just pure fear, I felt the bliss of like, like arms out, just like kind of.
It doesn't matter if I shit my pants.
Yeah,
I'm in heaven.
But eventually the ride ends, and I think because of the adrenaline, my cheeks like clenched so much that it was impossible for me to shit myself. I go to the bathroom after that. I do my business, and I feel on top of the world after that. Yeah, but that is definitely probably the closest incident I've had with a roller coaster.
I've never come close on a coaster.
Have you almost like pissed yourself or thrown up?
No, I'm actually like really good with like pretty much like once you like get used to riding coasters and like the sensations you feel, like you never quite like get that. The only time that I almost did, and it wasn't like I was like, it was like I could have if I did it another go. I was like running through the coasters actually on a trip earlier this year in North Carolina with my buddy and soon to be roommate Taj. Shout out,
hey, shout out.
MNL2 Contriver on YouTube. He and I went to Carowinds, and the first day we went, it was pouring rain. But they had opened like half the rides because East Coast theme parks, they run with rain. Okay. So as long as like, it's not like so torrential downpour, you can ride. And so we were riding all of the coasters in the rain. And by that point, it was like halfway through the day, I was getting kind of tired. Not just because, oh boy, I've been on like 10 coasters already, but because it's raining. Like we went on a ride and the water, they were taking so long to dispatch because of the rain that like my pants were like filling with little puddles of water in the creases. And then when the ride started and we started flipping, the water started flipping all over, like it was getting launched. So I didn't know which direction I was going. I didn't know what, but water was getting launched in my face. But there was one coaster that I love, but I could only ride it twice in a row. And then I needed like a hour break. And it's because it has so much hang time. It only has like a lap bar. And it dispatches out of the station and you just go upside down. And it's like 6 seconds
Ugh.
of pure, like, I feel like I'm going to fall out of the seat onto the ground sort of thing. And it's great, but that's too much. That is too much hang time for me. And especially with all the rain, I got off the brake run on the second, and my friend was like, "We need to go again." And I was like, "I'm going to need a second, you know?" But that's like the only time that I've ever experienced any form of like sickness or
Yeah. I will say you have
nausea.
incredible endurance when it comes to being able to handle that. Because I can hold my own with maybe three in a row without like feeling crazy. But then after that,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god, dude! Like the amount of endurance that this does take, at least for like someone like me, like is pretty challenging.
See,
Speaking of
that's where I don't know if it's learned, but you know, whatever.
I guess you do learn it. All right, let's switch gears over, and why don't we talk about some movies? Why don't you?
Yeah.
Let's each introduce a movie that we watched recently that we really liked.
Okay. Well, actually, I want to kind of start off with something I watched last night.
Okay.
And Joey and Tori and I are all big fans of this guy on YouTube.
Is this the documentarian guy? Okay, I've heard
Yeah.
I saw the reviews and I was like, oh, like it doesn't even have like a poster, but
Yeah.
what is this?
Well, it just released like yesterday, so it wouldn't have a poster. And with certain feature length YouTube videos, they take time to process because sometimes Letterboxd will take a video down if they don't consider it a movie. Like they don't consider most YouTube stuff movie.
Yeah.
It has to be like published on like Vimeo or have a distributor, play in theaters, play in a streaming service. And YouTube's kind of like the gray area. And this guy did this documentary last year on Fast Pass at the Disney parks.
Yes, I do remember that.
And it's amazing. And this one's very niche. It's the one that he made this year is about the Disney Channel jingle. You know.
Oh, like the
Dun,
ba,
dun,
ba,
dun.
ba.
Yeah. And he was like, who wrote that? Because, you know, he looked up the history of all these famous network jingles, NBC, Nickelodeon, Comedy Central, and he could find all of like the creators of those themes, but he couldn't find the Disney Channel one. And for the longest time, there's been this misconception that the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, a ska band in the 90s, was the inspiration for it, when in fact that's not true. So he did a deep dive investigation documentary into trying to find out who made this theme. And so he's interviewing a bunch of people within the film, TV, and music industry, while also doing his own like research about Disney Channel as a channel. And it's not about any of the content or TV shows that dropped at the time, but more about ads, idents, bumpers. So it's a very unique perspective on something that you really don't think about as a kid, but is so iconic and ingrained and think into most memories of kids who were raised on Disney Channel,
Which is
versus
a
the other
surprisingly
two
large
networks.
amount of people, yeah.
Right.
Even for
and
me,
it was
yeah.
it was fascinating. And honestly, Chris, you should give it a watch.
Is it
It's
long?
very easy.
Like how?
It's
like,
like it's a feature length doc, so it's
Okay.
like 90 minutes, but it's great.
Yeah. No, yeah. The thing I've recently like kind of really started to admire about docs is that like you can make a doc about anything, and so long as you convey your narrative, well, it can work because like anything can be interesting. Everyone is interesting. Everybody has a story. Everything is a story, so long as you articulate it well. And like something as seemingly redundant as a 4-note jingle, I would imagine actually does have a pretty interesting story behind it. So yeah, like that sounds pretty cool. I would love to check that out. The only what movie would I what movies would I want to talk about? I finished the Three Colors trilogy recently, which I'm happy I finally did. That was a couple months long project. You know what movie I have been thinking about ever since we watched it together?
What?
I've been thinking a lot about Airplane. That movie's so funny.
I don't know if we mentioned on the podcast. I mean, we have mentioned that we do movie nights after.
But yeah, we've
our
never
pod.
like really recapped the movies that we've watched. Like we usually just leave that to Letterboxd. Yeah, Airplane's funny as fuck. There's so many funny bits, and like every scene is a bit, which does like sometimes I'm like, okay, like that sounds.
It can
so, like,
miss.
ugh. But it commits to it so well, and every bit is genuinely funny. Like the the one of that guy coming into the cockpit and being like, I just want to wish you both good luck. We're all counting on you. Like I think that to myself like all the time now because it's just like it's such a funny thing. And like
Even when the plane crashes.
Yeah, and I would love to like just start doing that to people like whenever they're in a high pressure situation, just open the door and be like, hey, if I want to wish you good luck, we're all counting on you. And just close the door and just like don't say anything else. And yeah, I mean like the scene, I remember you mentioned like that you thought the scene at the bar like dragged on a bit, which I get. But at the same time, like that, I mean also I'm just a big Bee Gees fan. So that whole scene is so good. I love that scene. But yeah, those are two movies that I feel like we've both recently like quite liked.
I mean, I watched Banshees of Inisherin.
That's also on my list. I've heard many great things. The big thing I would look forward to in seeing it is I want to see. I've heard Barry Keoghan is absolutely hilarious.
If he's kind of unintelligible, if I'm being honest, like I can understand why some people would need subtitles for this movie. Mm-hmm. Not me. Definitely not me, but like he is as Irish as they come in that movie. And you know, the movie as a whole, it's pretty good. I think it gets across what It's a Wonderful Life is saying in a much more tragic and upsetting way, if that makes sense. Yeah, about the need for friendships and how toxic people are in just their normal lives. And it doesn't even need to be set in the modern day to convey that. Like, I didn't know, and this has been going around on Twitter a lot lately too. I didn't know until like halfway through whether or not this was set in the present day and Ireland was just like this in its rural parts, or if it was set in like the 18th century or 19th century.
I will say, yeah, every time I've looked at like the stills or like the trailers, it's always like, what era is this? I know it's like it's supposedly like painted in the backdrop of the Irish Civil War.
Yeah, it's not until they mention that that I was like, oh, okay, this is when it's taking place.
Okay,
sort of thing.
Well, maybe there is something kind of timeless about the Irish aesthetic.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I don't know if there's a lot of Irish films that I have watched though, but nonetheless, it was very good. I need you to check that out. It's probably going to get nominated for Best Picture.
I honestly think it probably will. What a year it's been for Colin Farrell and Paul Dano. Both very different roles that they had this year with Batman, Banshees, and Fabelmans.
The Fabelmans. I'm very proud of their growth as actors.
Yeah, those two have done really well for themselves.
Yeah. I haven't seen The Fabelmans yet, though. I'm trying to watch it this week, but Friday, I already have my A-list reservations for the next few weeks. Because there's a lot of movies coming out. There's a lot.
We're heading into like the exciting, like we're heading into like the end of the award season, but also like the start of like the Christmas boom of blockbusters again before the end of the year. Like, for example, I'm sure I saw on Twitter you did. I did too. I got my tickets for Avatar. I'm so excited.
Yep.
I had to book mine for Sunday, unfortunately, because I know, but it's opening weekend, so hopefully it is. But yeah, I'm really excited to see it. IMAX 3D. Yeah, had to do it.
Getting the high frame rate, bro.
Yeah,
the high frame rate version.
Like, you got to do it the way he intended it.
We talk about him like he's God, Chris.
if you had to like, because there are very few filmmakers in the world alive now who have what I like to call the I'll do whatever the fuck I want card for studios, and that's like okay, so that's Cameron, Spielberg,
maybe Scorsese,
Tarantino, Nolan, but that's about it.
Yeah,
because like
all white men,
all getting older white men, and like I wonder like do you think like kind of like the you know how like we talk about like the death of the movie star, death of the actor? Like, do you think eventually we'll lose that as in terms of directors? Because I wonder, like, do you foresee any director being able to pull that off anymore? Because I feel like nowadays more than anything, the power of that like lands with the producer or the studio rather, or the property rather than the like the individual talent.
See, that's where I don't know, because if I'm looking at any up and coming filmmaker, the only one who I think has that power currently, who is like under 50, is probably Damien Chazelle.
That's true. Damien's doing really well.
Because how was he able to make a 3-hour movie? Now, none of us have seen it yet. Only like high profile critics have seen it. But Babylon is a 3-hour movie about old Hollywood in the 1920s and 1910s.
Yeah.
And it does have movie stars in it that are not necessarily superhero stars. But it's also like not around something that I think general audiences would like strive for or care about necessarily. But yeah, I mean, I think it depresses me to think about, because I do think there's a lack of autonomy with directors. Like, I feel like nowadays executives handpick directors rather than the directors going up to the studio and like auditioning because they think they're right for the part, or they have a script that they really like and they take it to a producer to try to sell it and make it. And that is sad. But you're always going to have indies auteurs out there. Like Ari Aster's doing the same thing with A24 right now. Robert Eggers with Focus Features in A24. I do think there is some autonomy, but like not in the blockbuster realm of things, which is sad. I don't know about you, because you're actually in the production, so like you might have a better speaking on this than I do. But that's just my perspective as somebody who's a historian, quote unquote.
Right. Well, for me, like it's tough because like I wonder, because like I definitely do believe that the movie star like status is definitely something that is fading. I genuinely think like the last quote unquote movie star is Tom Cruise. In America, at least. I'm trying to think, like, there are definitely some younger actors who are still like, you know, doing their thing, but in terms of reaching that like level of quote unquote prestige, I guess, that it tends to come with the label of movie star, I feel like Tom Cruise is one of the last ones. However, like in terms of how that applies to that notion, how that notion applies to directors, it's tough because I have yet to see one really grab the industry by the reins once again. And like, yeah, like you said, Damien Chazelle is probably the closest one I can think of to being able to do that right now. But at the same time, Damien Chazelle, as powerful of a director as he is in the industry, he's not able to like demand like, let's say, shooting on IMAX in the same way that Tarantino or Nolan can.
Right.
Because I guess his name doesn't carry the same weight as theirs does, even though I don't know, I don't feel like it should be exclusive to them. I feel like it should be, you know, whoever. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's also just, I mean, we're also playing with hypotheticals here, you know? So there's never going to be a definitive answer as to what this is. But in my head, yeah, I feel like the power of the director is always going to be strong just because of the nature of that role in relation to the creation of film. But as far as like their pull within the industry, I feel like more and more we're starting to see producers and studios being able to have much more leverage, especially in comparison to the way it once was. I know Ben Affleck and Matt Damon recently announced that they're starting a production company, and apparently a lot of the dividends of what they make is going to the production company itself, as well as like the individual talents that work on the project, which sounds great. I hope they honor that. I hope this isn't just some ploy to make more money or something. But you know, you never know. It's Hollywood. People make money in all sorts of ways.
Well, speaking of Tarantino,
yeah,
I don't know if you've seen his quotes recently online, but
no, but go for it.
All right. So he said that the 50s, 1980s, and the 2020s are currently the worst eras of cinema.
Wait, 50s, 80s?
And 2020s. We are currently living through one of the worst ages of cinema. Do you agree with that notion? Or do you think that he is only generalizing it to be based on the blockbusters that maybe he doesn't agree with as a filmmaker?
Okay. 50s Okay, I don't have a huge amount of knowledge on the 50s, so I'm gonna step aside from that one. 80s, I don't know. 80s is I quite like the 80s. It's not my number one. I think the 90s are my favorite. Um, oh well, yeah, maybe 90s honestly. 90s and 2000s I really like. But hey guys, sorry about that. Had a little technical difficulty there. All right, we were talking about Tarantino and what he said. Um, I don't know. I feel like the 1980s is, I don't know. I think it's a pretty good decade in movies. Like I think we got some good stuff there. Um, 2020s. I mean, granted, we've only been in it for 2 years, and it's both been pandemic years. You know, granted, I do think this year has been pretty good. You know, like we've gotten some really great stuff this year. So maybe the 2020s is up for a turnaround. So I don't really agree with that, but I mean, I don't know. Tarantino's entitled to his opinion, just like anyone else. What do you think of
I
it?
think I think we're in the golden age, and maybe it's just because I'm not watching all the bad stuff. Like, I don't know about you, Chris, but since I got A list, and I've been becoming more selective of what I watch in theaters,
Yeah, what you
because
spend your
because
time
I
with. Yeah,
right, because like I don't need to use all 12 reservations in a month unless I truly need to or want to watch the movies.
yeah,
Not saying like I don't want to, like, I don't see the value of watching bad movies, but I don't need
yeah,
to. So like, for every Morbius I watch, I probably won't watch another Transformers movie because money talks. Yes, it's not the money I'm paying for it, but it's the money that AMC is paying
it's the
to.
money that the studios look at, and that's what
Yeah,
matters.
right. And I'm like, well, I'll just like spend my money or spend my time watching the best films out there or small films that I've never heard of. And maybe occasionally watching a bad blockbuster. I watched Black Adam, I watched Jurassic World Dominion.
Yeah. No, yeah. Sometimes I will say there is value to be had with watching a bad movie. Sometimes it actually kind of, in a weird way, it kind of heightens your appreciation of good movies. And also, bad movies don't necessarily have to be like, even if a movie's bad, it doesn't mean it's a bad experience. You can still enjoy yourself with a bad movie. Um,
Yeah.
by the way, real quick, tangent. I came back positive still, folks. So I am still COVID positive. So be aware.
Don't go to Chris's house.
Yeah, don't go to my house yet. Um, I that kind of bums me out. I was hoping to go to school tomorrow. I'm gonna take another test in the morning. Hopefully, by some miracle, I'll be able to go to class because I'm gonna fall behind if I don't. So just gonna have to pray for that.
Do you miss human interaction, Chris?
I also do miss human interaction. I can't lie. But that's one thing. We'll deal with that as we go. Um, anyway, yeah. I mean, Brand, for you, what are the best years in cinema,
That's a
or like,
hard
or
question.
maybe the best decade would be a better question.
Okay, so the best decade is hard too because for me, like if you're like going based on the average rating, like the 50s and 60s would be up there,
Yeah,
even though I've seen far less of that product. Although this year I've done a really good job at trying to broaden my horizons,
yeah,
but because like I'm just like I'm trying to watch all of the best picture nominees,
hmm
and that's like there's probably 40 from each of those decades that I hadn't seen before this year, and I've probably watched about 50 or 60 of those 80,
yeah,
which is good, but not all of those are good. It just means like, hey, like, I am exploring more. But in terms of like I mean, I'm biased because the 2010s is when I really came into cinema. And I think maybe I was less critical in the early 2010s, so I'm gonna look back fondly on worse movies. Like Olympus Has Fallen is a movie I really like, or
yeah,
Battleship is a
yeah. I
movie I
agree.
enjoy,
I get that. Yeah,
but they're
everybody has
probably
those.
not good.
No, yeah, definitely. It is a weird thing. Like I'm trying to think. Like even for me, like if someone asked me like what are the best years in movies, like for in my experience, because obviously as I've been only alive for 20 years, 22 years, no, 23 years, sorry. Um, like a huge portion of my consumption of film has been more contemporary stuff. So 2010s, I think, is my most consumed era. And because of that, I've been able to seek out so much of the good stuff out from that year, from those years, rather than say like, let's say the 1930s, for example, where I only know a handful of films from that era. Um, I'm actually, funnily enough, as I say that, I'm actually on the way of watching. I'm about like 15 to 20 minutes into All Quiet on the Western Front, the OG, because I kind of want to see that new Netflix one, but I want to see like how it compares against the original first. Um, so we'll see. um, yeah, but yeah, for me, like I don't know. I feel like for me, I really like the '90s. I guess if I had to pick one, '90s and 2010s are my favorite.
90s are tough for me
Yeah,
because the grungy feel. Because if you look at 90s cinema, I feel like it's experimenting because that's like the advent of digital technology.
yeah, that's true.
And some of it is really interesting and good. Like, I love The Celebration. That film is basically filmed on a digital camera. If not all of it is filmed on a digital camera. And then when you look at something, I'm not the biggest fan, and this is going to seem like sacrilege to you, Chris. I'm not the biggest fan of Wong Kar-wai's 90s style.
Boo, big boo. Everybody shame Brandon. Shame him. Everyone listening, you know you're on my side. Fuck this guy. What are you talking about? That shit is so cool.
It's like cute.
Cute. Dude, it's like provocative, man.
It is provocative, but that doesn't mean it's visually pleasing to myself. I think it is, but he experiments with that in Chungking and probably Fallen Angels.
You fucking square.
But he doesn't do that in The Mood for Love.
Yeah, you like your nice framing, you bitch.
I do.
You like your proper framing.
I like colors that are aesthetically pleasing together, that aren't too obtrusive, but are saying something. That's why I love In the Mood for Love so much. You're being saved
by my love for In the Mood for Love.
I mean, Ethan needs to rewatch it.
Ethan does need to rewatch it.
Let's actually, I want to do the segment that you guys did when I was
gone. Let's call him out some stuff.
Yeah, let's say, like, there are some movies that we love or really like that he just doesn't like or doesn't care for.
Yeah, let me think. The OG 3 Rapunzel movies. That comes to mind.
Yeah.
High School Musical.
Yeah. The Barbie movies.
Other than like a small handful.
The one that comes to mind most for me, and I was talking about it with the other day because he literally just watched this filmmaker's last movie that he needed to watch before the new movie comes out. He does not like Titanic.
Yeah, he doesn't like Titanic.
And I've never met somebody who doesn't like Titanic except for him.
Titanic is okay. I have an interesting relationship with this movie.
Yeah.
Titanic, for me, I would not rank among the greatest films ever made. However, I will say Titanic is a movie that when I saw it as a kid, it was a movie that had a profound effect on me. And was a movie that because it was a movie that I was exposed to because I think my mom and my sister really liked it. And I would see it from time to time, and I had seen having seen the movie, even though yes, there are things that are okay, maybe a little corny, maybe a little overdone here and there, a little indulgent, whatever. Obviously, it's a melodrama. It's the genre is that. However, what makes this movie work so well is that it registers an emotion that is so universally understandable and a story that is so easy to root for. Because we love Jack and Rose. It's easy to love them. They're in a situation where we can't help but fall in love with them as a couple. And the movie does such a good job of navigating that and makes it so that even if it's not the most profound, intellectually stimulating movie you'll ever see, it's a movie that registers emotions, especially at such a young age, that is overwhelming. And even if it's not the greatest movie ever made, is a movie that prompted me to seek out great movies going forward. There's a great video essay by this guy named Nerdwriter on YouTube about Titanic. Highly recommend it for anyone to watch. Ethan, Titanic. I know it's a little corny, and I know you're not into that shit, but it's so deserving of it, and I love it. I don't know.
Ethan doesn't really appreciate camp.
Yeah, he's not
think.
he's not the biggest camp guy.
He
He
likes
does
camp
like
when it
camp.
comes to horror. Horror,
He
I
likes horror
think.
camp, yeah.
But like when I'm thinking of like musicals are very campy and kitschy.
Yeah.
Melodramas can be very campy, especially, and he mocks me all the time for it. Doctor Who.
Yeah, Doctor Who's campy.
It's very campy at times, but it does have like these serious things going on. And with Titanic, it's like it's such a staggering achievement that he did most of that like practically,
Yeah, it is pretty like it is a feat of what they accomplished with this movie. Like I cannot believe some of the stuff they did.
Right. Can you imagine as like a cinematographer, like how you're going to be setting up these
Oh my
shots?
god. Like it's daunting. There's just so much to think about.
Like so many moving pieces. You have extras in the water.
You got like
that
the
you have to
set
give
that
direction.
rotates and moves, and then you can like you got to scale things properly. You got to think about VFX. You got to think about lighting, composition. Like it's just oh my god. Like yeah, it's a gargantuan task, and Cameron is known for having productions that are just larger than life. And
Which is why we're
which is why
excited
we're
for
excited for Avatar 2. Yeah, dude. I'm really
Ooh.
excited for this movie. I think it's gonna be great. I'm keeping my expectations low for good reason, just so that I can only be impressed. But yeah, I look forward to seeing what he can pull off with this one because I know Cameron's an easy director to hate, but it's like the thing is like Brandon, you always bring up this argument whenever anyone disdains Cameron. It's like, okay, like I get that, but has he ever really made a bad movie? No.
Ethan's argument to that is yes.
What? Titanic?
Because he says Piranha 2 or Piranha the original, and I'm like, but like that's like a low blow because some people's first movies to get into the industry,
Yeah,
they're not shiny.
Everybody shuffles through crap at some point, you know?
Like David Fincher's was Alien 3, and nobody is like, oh, my favorite David Fincher movie is Alien 3. No. But like with Cameron, it's like I look at all of his movies as like this is a man who is like constantly trying to push the bounds of genre storytelling in terms of technological advancement.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's a pioneer in visual effects.
Massive, huge person in that field.
Yeah, but he doesn't overuse them or like you would say, well, like Avatar, and I'm like, well, my counter to that is watch the making of documentary on the Blu-ray,
and also
of
like
Avatar.
Like I've also been a big I guess advocate. I don't know what the right word is for like the idea that like VFX is an incredible tool. You know, it's and much like anything in the world of filmmaking, these are all tools, things that can help bring your vision to life. And Avatar does have a lot of VFX. There's no doubt about that. However, it's a tool. Is it being used well? I think so. I think it's being used wonderfully. I feel like a lot of the stuff that they're doing with VFX is stuff that you can't do in real life or can't do nearly as well in real life. I feel like movies that use VFX to augment things tends to be a lot less effective than times where movies use VFX to create things that cannot be done in real life. And obviously, we're not gonna fucking go to a jungle and blow shit up because that's wrong. And also, obviously, Navi don't exist.
Yeah,
but like that's the imagination,
real.
That's the imagination of the filmmaker, and that's why these tools are much like anything else, much like a lens, much like anything else in the world of film. These are just tools.
Now, do you think it's justifiable for people online to critique other, like, for example, you're going to see a lot of superhero movies get critiqued online for their visual effects, whether it's needless or not, and compare it to something that James Cameron does only like he's starting to make a movie a decade sort of thing. I know he's making these Avatar movies, but I feel like they're all just kind of like he's making them all at once.
Yeah.
So it might as well just constitute one giant movie.
Mm-hmm.
But he takes a decade to make movies. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So do you think it's justifiable for them to critique that?
Well, I don't like. Okay, so here's the thing. When I look at, let's say, let's take the elephant in the room that is the Marvel universe. Like, yeah, there have been times where I've been watching a Marvel movie and just been a little like eyebrow raising with the VFX stuff, which like is a critique of its own, but also at the same time, like I recognize that VFX studios are not entirely to blame for this. Obviously, it might be a component in like whether or not they're working in the right way or whatever. But in all honesty, a lot of my qualms with the way that VFX is handled in the Marvel films is more so to do with the workload that Marvel puts on their VFX teams. They are way overbearing. We've talked about this at length before, and yeah, like it's one of those things where it's like, are you spreading your team too thin? Quality versus quantity, and like if Marvel is churning out, let's say 3 movies a year plus whatever number of shows or what have you, yeah, they're spreading their teams thin, and they're not going to be able to turn in the product that they want, and that comes at a detriment. Um, as far as how I feel about that with Cameron, in my opinion, Cameron's films, like even the original Avatar, and especially the new one, I think look fantastic. Granted, there are 1 or 2 shots in the trailer that make me go, but like it's a trailer. I find that largely forgivable. And like, yeah, if a movie has like 1 or 2 moments where it's like not quite right, that's all right. It's just a shot. But like,
Yeah.
but for the most part, when I look at this stuff, it's fucking incredible. Like, I still kind of obsess over that shot of the Na'vi like tightening the rope on the
Sea
the sea
creature.
creature that they're riding. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about like it's just like I've seen so many VFX breakdowns of stuff like that. I love watching Corridor Crew on YouTube. They do great VFX breakdown stuff, and yeah, like I have such an admiration for the craft, and I think it's yeah, and like like I think if a VFX shot can sell the audience on what it's trying to convey, that's all that matters to me. And
Mm.
yeah, even if with a small technical hiccup here and there, that's all right. Try and fix it. But like, I don't think hating on filmmakers is warranted unless they're actually
Ever.
terrible people. Period.
Oh, Michael Bay. Okay.
Yeah, you can be a terrible person. You get your flack. But if you're just like mediocre work is one thing, being a piece of shit is another thing.
Yeah, I find like honestly, and this is maybe somebody who I don't have like a big background in VFX, but somebody will say something's a bad VFX, and 90% of the time, I would think it would be good visual effects. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I would say, like the times in at least recently that I've agreed with the mainstream consensus that the VFX are a bit rough was when we saw there were a few episodes of She-Hulk, especially at the beginning of the show, that did feel rough, and then Thor: Love and Thunder. But for the most part, I look at VFX and I'm like, I know that they can't actually do this, so I'm not going to complain that the VFX look shoddy if they don't look like a James Cameron movie, which is like photorealistic, especially when that guy knows how to like hone in and use 3D technology and motion capture, unlike pretty much any other director. I look back at the old Lord of the Rings movies and I look at Gollum and I'm like, that is like some of the weakest motion capture I've ever seen. But because of Gollum and the advancement of that, he's much better in the third one and then in the second one. We get amazing VFX and motion capture like in Avatar and like in The Hobbit and like in the Dawn of the Planet of the Apes trilogy.
Right.
And those are all fantastic uses of it to the point where could be considered photorealistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's just something that's been on my mind lately with Avatar coming out. Although I will say, and I don't think I've said this publicly. I am nervous for this movie.
I am too. I really hope. I do have faith that Cameron is going to deliver a great movie, but at the same time, it's nerve-wracking because 10 years, there's time to get rusty in there,
Yeah.
And like,
but also, yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, you never know, and like, it is a high concept sci-fi film. Like, there's a lot of room for error here, but I hope he can pull it.
I think the biggest thing that I'm nervous about is the first film got critiqued for being a cookie cutter story.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes me nervous, and everybody's like, oh, it's going to be different. I'm like, but the humans are back. So it's obviously going to be a somewhat similar conflict. But I'm more intrigued about the personal narrative between Jake and his family and Neytiri. And honestly, the element I'm most excited for is actually Stephen Lang's character.
Yeah, I'm very curious, like how are they going to navigate this and why? Like, what's going on here? Like,
yeah, like where is he as a character? How does he react to becoming a Na'vi? How does he become a Na'vi?
Yeah,
you know, I think that's really interesting because he hates he hates the Na'vi.
He's a big time bigot.
Yeah. So how is he a bigot now that he is what he hates? You know, him crushing his skull in that second trailer.
Oh, God, this is
so cool. So cool. Anyway, outside of Avatar and James Cameron, is there anything in your personal life that's been going on other than COVID? I know, like, you're in school, classes.
Yeah. I mean, like,
you have a girlfriend. How's that going?
Oh gosh, personal life stuff. I mean, like, yeah, like you said, with COVID, these last last week or so, I haven't seen another human in the flesh in over a week, so it's been a bit weird.
Not even your roommates?
Well, no, because like we have a system where whenever I need to go to the kitchen to make some food or whatever, I'll text in the group chat and just be like, hey guys, mind if I hop out to go do whatever? And then they'll be like, yep, sounds good. They clear out if they're in there, and then they let me go do my thing. I sanitize everything I touch, obviously. And yeah, but like, yeah, so it's been kind of navigating that. But as far as other stuff, I mean, school, because of COVID, like school has been hard to keep up with. I have been managing to keep up with the workload, but I won't lie, I'm a little nervous if I don't go into school tomorrow because I'm worried I'm going to fall behind in one of my classes. But my professor has thankfully been very gracious and very understanding of the situation and is willing to work with me on that. So I'm sure it'll be okay. It's just like I would love to be able to go to school tomorrow and do my work because otherwise I'm going to be swamped because I've got a lot on my plate. So, but other than that, I'm navigating well. I'm finding balance in life, which is always a challenge. Yeah, girlfriend's doing great. I'm actually seeing the Menu with her the next weekend. We're both big time fans of Anya Taylor-Joy.
I got that from her profile picture.
Yeah,
on Letterboxd.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm very very excited for that. Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. But other than that, everything like beyond all of like the complications of the COVID and whatnot, I largely cannot complain. I'm doing largely pretty well for myself right now.
Do you have anything that you do in your free time? If you're stuck in home so much, like you're stuck in your room. Yeah, you're stuck at home.
If I don't want to sit down and watch a movie, a lot of the time I'll just be on my phone watching stuff on YouTube, or like I love just like playing. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm a big video game person, and one game that I've been really into these last few months has been Apex Legends. I really enjoy that game. I honestly think that game could turn into a movie if they really wanted to. I don't know if it'll be good, but they could because the characters are pretty well done. But yeah, other than that, I'm just living my day-to-day life, and it's going all right. Is there anything you want to share with the audience before we wrap it up here? I feel like we're about to hit the hour mark.
Yeah. I mean, I've been seeing someone recently.
Oh yeah?
We hit it off really well. And like I'm kind of superstitious about stuff, so I don't want to jinx anything, but like I really like her.
Okay.
And she makes me really happy. Like the other day, I was just supposed to drive her home.
Mm-hmm.
And I drove her home, and then we ended up being in my car for 6 hours.
It is amazing when you find someone who like you have that kind of connection with, that like you can literally do nothing and it's fun, and like time flies, you get to like connect with them. Yeah, and it feels meaningful. I'm glad to hear that things are going like that, not to jinx anything or anything like that, but like to like I'm glad to hear things are going okay for you right now.
It's weird for me to have a connection with somebody like that.
It's special.
Because
It's special when you find someone,
yeah,
because there's always like you might find someone you like. Ooh, I kind of like you, but when you like meet someone who like you form a connection that's deeper than attraction, obviously, and as like if that's your style, if your style is pure, that's fine. But I feel like Brandon, you and I are both like big, and so is Ethan. I feel like big into like finding a deep emotional connection to someone. Yeah, it's a special thing.
hmm but yeah, I mean, it's just I find it super weird to like, you know, I don't know about you, but it's just sometimes I feel like I'm on a date and I enjoy my time with somebody,
Hmm.
but I kind of want to get out of there as soon as like the date is done. Do you
Okay.
ever have that where it's like you like somebody, but like the allotted time has passed,
Hmm.
But I've found somebody that doesn't happen with,
No,
and
yeah,
that's
I
just
do get what
like,
you mean. Like sometimes it's like the date's the date, but like I feel like in my experience with my current girlfriend, the like it's not even in the sense of like, oh my god, like I gotta be around you all day, every day, because I can't stand that. Like the not that I can't stand her, I just
yeah, it
can't.
sounds like
Like I can't
Chris. What are you
stand like
saying?
the overly attached bullshit. I can't deal with it. I think that stuff is so toxic. I feel like if you have to be on the phone with your significant other like 24/7, not into that.
That
But
doesn't apply to anybody we know, by the way.
um stupid. But anyway, the whole thing is like I think like yeah, like it there's a difference between that and like finding an emotional connection with someone to the point that like yeah, you would love to be like you enjoy spending maximum amount of time with them, but you don't feel that like aching like I gotta be around you all day every day, like and like yeah, I get that. I think a good relationship is a balance of like healthy distance, but also strong connection and
Oh yeah,
valuing the time that you do have together. Uh,
which I do.
yeah, which I'm sure you do. Well, folks, I think that's gonna do it for us on this episode of Stacked. Thank you so much for joining us on a very unscripted version of our show.
Yeah,
This was literally just Brandon and I shooting the shit and just chatting about whatever it is that comes to mind. Brandon and I are probably gonna go have some food and watch a movie in a minute here now. But thank you guys so much for joining us on Stacked. All our links are down below or what have you. You know how it is. All right, have a good rest of your weekend, guys. Bye.
bye bye.
Bye bye.